Welcome to the show. You're listening to Shane and Scott here on Prepper Talk Radio, AM 1640. And we are back, of course, Prepper Talk Radio. And while we figure out this mic thing here, maybe we should take a little break here, Scott. I think you just need to. It needs to be plugged in the back here. I think the previous show messes up with the mic connection here. And why don't you grab her, Scott? Sorry about that. Well, thanks for tuning in. This is, as you know, just kind of a budget radio station, and we do the best we can. And we appreciate you listening in. And, of course, we want to acknowledge our sponsor, Survival Medical, survival-medical.com, the only first aid kit tougher than nature. Okay, I think he's on now. You got the right button there pushed there, Scott?
All right, there we go. I am on.
I hear you now. All right. You can take it. Let me give a quick shout-out real quick to a couple of guys I met down at Fastenal in Orem. It's in there picking up some fasteners. And, of course, what else do I get to talking about but prepping and, of course, silver, one of the big things I constantly talk about that my wife rolls her eyes to. And if she's listening now, she'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But I get to talking about silver or, you know, our current condition. And it either gets people rolling their eyes or it gets them terribly interested. So thanks, people, for listening. Not just here today, but whenever I talk.
Sweet. I thought there was more about Fastenal. I'm like,
no,
cool.
Just check them out. You know, it's
it's
where I get my
actually a
custom
really
fasteners.
good. Well, it's a really good tool you can use for prepping.
Oh yeah, you
get
got
all kinds of fasteners. Yeah. You know, right? There you go.
There we go. Absolutely good lead in there.
Good first aid stuff too.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they had a little section on safety.
Okay, that's right. They do safety
prices.
as well. Yeah.
Nice. They have the compact.
Little first aid kits.
No, the cold packs.
Oh, okay.
Very compact.
Yeah. The other voice you hear there, that is our good friend Cache Valley Prepper, who's joining us today.
In studio guest.
In studio,
it's
instead of on
awesome.
the phone.
He took time out of his busy schedule to get all the way down here from his hideout up in the mountains. I shouldn't call it a hideout, but it kind of feels like it. It's so cool. He lives up in a very fertile location with lots of interesting cold weather, but it's a good area. Well, I love that area up there.
Yeah, his name just may give it away a little bit, right?
I know.
A little bit.
I'm not going to say what town, though. You got to figure it out. It's the Prepper challenge of the day.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Figure out where Cache Valley Prepper resides. If you can't figure that out, I don't know what's wrong with you. Anyways, well, you might be from out of state and not be familiar with the area.
Cache Valley is.
Anyways, Cache is he does a professional prepper, as I like to call him, as he may agree or disagree with. But you're a writer with Survivopedia. You're the Survival Sensei. What else are your major projects that you work on?
Freelance writer. I do write a lot through Survivopedia. I run Survival Brain Trust.
That's right.
And a company called Survival Sensei LLC.
And now with that, you also at PrepperCon came and did some classes on EMPs, but that's not your only focus. I mean, you're one of the most well-rounded, analytically driven minds that I'm thankful enough to call friends. So it's a real pleasure to have you here on the air with us. And I think for our listeners' sake, you guys are in for a treat. You're going to learn a lot today. And we're going to be talking primarily about CERT and about local community, what you can do to help your community be better prepared. And that's part of our mission. So thank you for being here today, Cache. We really appreciate it. Good to see you in person again. And it's been a few weeks, but yeah, I'm looking. I don't know. I'm looking at my watch. Look at my watch. I got this watch a few weeks ago, so maybe that's why it's like, hey, I got the watch the same time I saw you last. Well, anyways, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
It's gonna be a fun show.
All right, so CERT. What is CERT? What first of all, I guess what's a basic explanation of what CERT is? I know it basically stands for Community Emergency Response Team. So what is a CERT? I mean, what is a community team?
Basically a program from FEMA. It falls under the scary FEMA name.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way real quick here.
Right.
We don't want any calls, people telling us how bad FEMA is. We know all about that, but
FEMA is just another stupid organization that's run incorrectly, right? It has some good things. It has some bad things. We're not going to talk about those things today.
Right.
We're going to talk about CERT and about our communities.
We do like
today.
the CERT program, and we feel it's good for our communities. So we're going to talk about that today.
And then under FEMA, you have Citizens Corps, and they have a bunch of partners that help out in times of disaster when the local emergency responders are overwhelmed. And trained volunteers can pitch in.
Very cool. So now CERT, like you say, is a FEMA program, but it's also a local city program. I mean, the cities have adopted this and it's basically implemented through cities, correct?
Well, the program is federal, and then individual CERTs are chartered. There's a state level, and then a county level, and then a municipality level. And then, so typically, CERT will be chartered by a fire department or a city or an organization like that. And depending on the state and the part of the country and the threats in the area, that they'll have a threat-specific focus for each CERT.
One of the things that I like is I actually taught the Emergency Preparedness Merit Badge a few months ago to the Scouts up in Bountiful. And one of the things I learned, and I didn't know this before, was that CERT and FEMA and the National Emergency Council, they actually work with the Boy Scouts of America. Love them or hate them, totally up to you. But they work with the Boy Scouts, and so they can actually call up the Scouts through their Scoutmaster in times of crisis and time of need. And so CERT can say, hey, activate all the Boy Scouts and get them here. And I thought that was super cool. So I shared that with the Scouts, and they're like, wait, so if something bad happens, we've got to help? I'm like, do a good turn daily, guys. Come on. A bunch of little 12 and 13-year-olds are like, but my Xbox and I don't even know if that's the right gaming system anymore.
Yeah, it's still out there.
But they're like, well, all my other things I want to do and play with, that's not fair. I don't want to have to go help. It's like, well, that's what you signed up for when you became a Boy Scout, is to help. To improve your community, to improve the nation, to improve the world. And it's funny because some of them are like, oh, cool, so I can get, is it like going active duty military? I'm like, no, you're not going to have a gun. You're going to have a shovel maybe, or a crowbar, some gloves, and you'll be helping people out. But I think that's the key, is giving us an opportunity to help. And CERT does that. CERT's kind of the local community organization, if there's a charter, to get people going. Like Bountiful City has one, but they don't run the classes to get you CERT certified except for once a year. Salt Lake has them every quarter. So you can always go and sign up and learn, and you get a CERT kit when you're done, and a CERT phone tree, and then you get put on all the mailing lists and everything else when you're done. But
I think the key is that it's organized. The key word is that it's organized. It's not just and we're familiar with, in our ward LDS boundaries, we have our blocks. If there's an emergency, there's a plan in place. This is just another plan, another level of preparedness. And I know that you're all about plans, right? Right, Cash? I mean, you're probably the best planner that I've ever. I mean, he blows me away with his plans, and I start to glaze over because I just don't comprehend it all, and he's so technical. So, tell us about what are these plans that CERT has in place? Well,
it's one thing I'd say right off the bat is it's important. CERT can never self-deploy. If you're a CERT member, or if there's a CERT, everything has to come down through official channels, and that's why in Hurricane Katrina, the federal government couldn't just come marching right in, because they have to be requested by the state. So, the city can request help from the county, who requests from the state, who requests federal. And they can't come unless they're invited, sort of thing. And each unit or team, they can't come help unless they're activated. Same thing with the Red Cross, same thing with Civil Air Patrol, or in Medical Reserve Corps, any of these volunteer organizations, they get asked, and then you'll have what we call spontaneous volunteers, and that's a whole nother issue.
Now, one of the things that I find interesting about the whole process is I didn't realize that CERT had to go through those channels to get activated. So they can't just, hey, there's a neighborhood issue, we can jump up and help?
No, you're not supposed to.
Okay.
But if there was if it was, and some of the CERT training videos are slightly ambiguous about that, but if they're under certain events, it would be very obvious with a major earthquake or an EMP or something like that. But if they weren't able to get the word out, then you should just help in your neighborhood.
Right.
But
See, one thing I kind of wanted to do is let's pick a scenario and kind of run through how this program would work, because like you're saying, it really starts with yourself and your family, right? That's the first point. What do you want to call it? Point of contact, whatever. You take care of yourself and your family, and then from there, naturally, it kind of reaches out. Okay, how's my next door neighbor doing?
Yeah, you need to be in the fight and flag your own home. Do a 360 on your home and flag it. In my area, we flag our homes green or red, depending on if we need help or not. Then it goes out to the block level with block captains, and then to the neighborhood level. Then neighborhoods report into the city, and the city reports into the area, and so forth.
Now, I know that essentially the LDS Church is implementing this, and including not just the members in their boundary, but everyone in their boundary, making it part of this, so that it's not just everyone left to their own devices, right?
Yes, I really couldn't overemphasize the importance of cooperation between the LDS Church and units like CERT. This is very important.
Absolutely. Let's take this call real quick, see if they've got something on the CERT topic for us. Hey, thanks for calling into KTalk. You're on the line. What question do you have for us?
I'm from Riverton. Our Riverton City Council about 10 years ago decided to get involved in this CERT training, and so they had all the scout groups meet at City Hall for about 3 or 4 hours a night, putting together these old packets that had the red, green, yellow cards together with some masking tape and different pins, put it on the door as far as or black, if there were deaths, put on the door. And then they offered the training, and a lot of people responded to the training. And so the Boy Scouts were told that they would probably be used as runners for information,
That's what the Emergency Preparedness Manual actually says as well. They primarily will be helping hands and information runners. Yeah,
runners. Also, the fire stations, they said, are built for a 7.5 earthquake. If it's any higher than that, they could be destroyed also, all the fire stations. So all their equipment would be trapped also. And then they told us for the major power lines run down different streets, and we might be cut off because of that. Gas lines, we have a huge gas line that runs down 13th West. So, but it was really good training, and we all got to learn how to use a fire extinguisher.
So how long ago was that?
This was about 10 years ago. And then
awesome.
We put all this information, we handed them out through the Boy Scouts to all the homes and told them to stick it underneath their kitchen sink so that it was it would stay there even though the owners may move out, and that it would still be there, the information. And there's a little information packet inside, so they explained to them how to use the cards.
Hopefully they put it in a waterproof package, because there's a lot of chance for damage. As soon as there's an earthquake, that water line's going to be open and gushing all over that packet.
We put ours in sheet protectors.
Yeah, it's in plastic bags, so it's sealed.
Okay. Well, cool.
Anyway, it was a really good program, and I think
we're actually hitting our break. So if you want to hang on the line, you can join us afterwards, or you can call back in.
Okay.
We are Prepper Talk Radio, brought to you by Survival Medical. That's Survival-Medical. First Aid Evolved. Tougher than nature, and it's what we carry.
That's right.
Welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio. We've got Cache Valley Prepper in house. We're talking about CERT, which is the Community Emergency Response Team. And it's called up through the proper channels whenever there's a disaster. And we get the local Boy Scouts involved as runners and assistants and helping out. But it is a community-run department. So basically there's a community head that runs it. Who's in charge of each community or each branch, I guess you'd call it? I don't know what charter?
Well, typically it's going to be a battalion chief from the fire department or whoever the local emergency management authority is. If it's a county-sponsored CERT, then it's going to be the county emergency management.
Awesome. Well, let's bring our caller back online as well. We were talking about in their community down in Riverton, they put in water-protected packets with instructions and all the colors, and it sounded like you had the triage colors mixed up with the house marking colors, but let's correct that. Are you still online with us?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. So, Cash, what are the different colors? We talked about the green, the red, the yellow, and the black.
Okay. Yeah,
And the black, yeah.
We just want
basically, if there's a death in your home, you put the black out. If it was red, it would be you needed help as fast as possible. Yellow is, we don't need you right now, but we could use some help. And green, where we're good, meant you're okay, and things are fine. There's no injuries, so.
Interesting, because typically that's reserved for medical triage. Those colors.
Yeah.
Well, and
Cash, tell us what your take is.
SOP is put out at the unit level, so one municipality could have a different SOP than another. I know that for my county and my community, we mark, and typically, from what I've seen, this is pretty national, but there could be some rare birds out there that are doing it a little differently. But typically, you would mark your home only green or red, because all they need to know with your home, all the block captain needs to know to report in is whether you need assistance or not. So you check your home, you make sure everybody's okay, you're good to go, and make sure, if you have to turn off water or gas, you take care of that. Don't turn gas back on yourself ever. If you have to turn off power, turn off that too. And then you would flag your home, not on your front door, but to the side of your front door. You would flag it green or red, because if you flag it right on, and I've even seen FEMA responders make this mistake, but if you flag it right on the door, then whenever the door's open, you can't see the sign. But the important thing is it should be visible from the street.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you. Caller, do you have any other questions or comments?
I know we also have our block captains. We have meetings every 6 months.
Fantastic.
With them, and then we also have a walkie-talkie night. Once a month, we have somebody that starts it off by having them all sign in, like at 9 o'clock on the first Sunday of the month, 9 p.m.
Very cool.
We all go through and check to see if we can hear each other and the transmissions are okay and who's missing and who isn't. So
awesome.
It's good practice.
Well, hey, thank you so much for that information. Thank you for your call.
That's excellent. Not all communities do that.
It's interesting. In Bountiful, they do something similar. They actually used to do a ham radio check every first Sunday of the month, and now they've moved it to a CB radio locally. So one person connects to the ham and broadcasts the ham through the CB, so that way everyone that's the block captains or whatever, they don't have to have a ham license. They can just have a CB radio, and that's how the North Canyon area did it. I'm not sure how all the different wards are. It's interesting because when I lived in Arizona, I was the emergency preparedness coordinator for one of the wards I was in. It was a singles ward, so it was a cluster. It was an absolute cluster. And it was funny because a lot of them lived at home with their parents, and so they'd fall in line with their parents' ward or their parents' block captains and everything else. And so it was absolutely near impossible to coordinate it at a singles level ward. Singles ward level, but it was interesting because the wards is totally hit and miss. Some wards would do it, some wards wouldn't. When I was in California, the wards were a lot more spot on about doing it. Moving here, it's hit and miss again, I found, which is interesting because this is the mecca of Mormondom, right? Utah. And the block captains, when I moved into Bountiful, the guy that came to my house first is like, hey, we're part of the block captain group, and he's like, you're outside of my 5 houses, but I just wanted to introduce myself and let you know if you ever need anything and you can't get a hold of your block captain, I'm here. And I was like, wow, this guy's awesome. And he's not Mormon. Super cool guy, super prepared. And when he found out that I do this, he was like, "Oh, perfect. Oh man, I'm going to see if I can recharter this and rezone our houses because you should be in my group." He's like, "We could be the best group in the whole area." And I'm like, "Well, hold on, let's leave it as it is." But it's funny because they are diligent, or at least they were. You know, when we moved in, they were very diligent of checking in, letting everybody know who's where, whether you're a Mormon or not. I just think it's a community responsibility thing, and I think more communities need to do that.
And it's very important to make the distinction as well that it's not just an LDS thing. It's a federal run program, and there's a lot of integration. And FEMA does use ward boundaries, and you can't get anything done in this state without involving the LDS Church. You know, and there's a lot of good cooperation, but you don't have to be a member of the LDS Church to be in CERT. It's not run by the church; it's run by the federal government.
Yep. And typically, it's implemented by cities and local communities, towns
Correct.
and such.
Cities
is
and
where
counties,
that starts, and then they basically spread out from there.
Yes, it's a municipality.
So you can go directly to your city. And actually, you can go to FEMA.gov. I hate saying that, and then you can just trace it back to wherever your own city. I mean, your own city probably has a program.
You can just Google your city and then
there you
C.E.R.T. and see what pulls up. You know, that's how I found the Bountiful one because their website's not SEO friendly, but you can find it. But the key is we need to have an established, coordinated response for anything, and the simplest format for that, I believe, is CERT.
Well, it's what the government has handed down, and the transition from the civil defense program to Homeland Security to these programs is a process, not an event. And you know, California has had CERT active for a very long time. New York has some very active stuff because of 9/11. Then in hurricane areas, different regions have different levels of activity because of the urgency that they feel. Some areas don't have an active CERT in their area yet, but they will. You know, it's a process. It's happening, and just realize that it's in motion, and it's a process, not an event.
Yeah. And if there isn't one and you want to get involved, you can get involved and you can coordinate your community. Obviously, go up to the county level, see what the county has if you don't have one in your city, and go from there.
I think what this is mainly about is it's just about training and education. I mean, that's something that I think is most important because it doesn't, you know, your preps, you have to carry things, they have weight. You have to have ability to carry that. But your education, I mean, it weighs nothing, right?
Yeah. Well, it also comes back to collaborative communication. If everybody's on the same page or working off the same map, it's easier to coordinate. But if everybody has a different map, if everybody has a different idea of what should happen, it's very difficult to coordinate and very difficult to figure out, okay, who should be in charge. You know, because people will posture for power or posture for leadership. So we got another caller. Let's take this call. Hey, thanks for calling Prepper Talk Radio. You're on the air. What questions have you got for us?
Hi, good afternoon. I actually don't have a question.
Okay.
I'm in Sandy City Community number 27.
Perfect.
And we are doing a lot of stuff that you guys are talking about with the color coding kits and doing the communication drills and different things and getting the whole community involved with street captains and all that good stuff.
How do you feel your local community is responding to that? Do you think they're excited about it, getting really involved, or is it hard to get them involved?
Well, I would say they're warm to it. There's a lot of people that are saying, yeah, we're already there. We've got all that we need to have for an emergency and stuff. But getting them involved on a community level has been the biggest challenge because, you know, a lot of people are independent and a lot of people are just kind of private that way. But we've also collected information about what resources are available to us. For instance, big chainsaws, little chainsaws, winches, big trucks, little trucks, that kind of stuff, which has been really helpful.
Smart.
Now,
and we've also put together a website that we use to help people and post things up, and it's been probably the most effective tool.
Oh, awesome. What's the website?
It's familyready.net.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for your call. Appreciate your information.
appreciate your show. You guys are awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Really, really, really grateful for all you're doing because we love, well, I personally and those who I'm involved with in this kind of stuff, we really love the fact that there's people out there that know what's going on and tell us a little bit about what we should be doing, and your show is awesome.
Well, thank you.
Well,
Actually,
thank you very
appreciate
much.
That always makes
Appreciate
my day to hear that we're actually making a difference. We're not just here spinning our wheels, wasting our time. So
Yeah, flapping our gums,
flapping
right?
our gums. I mean, it's good for us. We learn a lot, but it's that's not the purpose here.
Well, it's funny because every week we do the show, we've got to do a little more homework to make sure we're better prepared for it. When we bring on a guest, we'll familiarize ourselves as much as we can with the topic, so that we can have a knowledgeable conversation. I mean, CERT is a roadmap, right? For me, that's the best way to describe it. It's a roadmap for how you should respond and how you can coordinate everyone, right, and prioritize. And if there isn't a roadmap in place, how do you coordinate? How do you prioritize? It's not that, some preppers will be like, oh, crap, it's part of FEMA. I don't want anything to do with it.
Exactly.
Let me correct you right here, right now. CERT, yes, it's brought down through FEMA.
Because it's a community effort.
But it's a community emergency response team. Now, if you want to be part of your community, this is, in my opinion, is the best way to do it. Get involved with the emergency response first, because then you understand what resources are available to the community. You understand what issues the community faces. But you also understand how to be of assistance when something goes awry. That is the key. Because if you don't know where to go, who to talk to, how to coordinate, you're going to become a larger problem than a solution. And we all want to focus on the solution-based dynamic, right? We want to look at thinking of, okay, how can I solve the problem? How can I reduce this problem before it happens or eliminate it from happening? Well, being part of CERT is part of that process because now you understand the weaknesses, the strengths. It's almost doing a SWOT analysis, for your neighborhood, being part of that process so that you can actually improve upon it and respond when necessary. And for those of you who don't know what SWOT is, it's a business acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And
it's not a SWAT team. It's not the sniper.
It's not SWAT with an A. It's SWAT with an O. But it's an analysis. You put 4 squares inside one big square, and you put your strengths in the top left, your weaknesses in the bottom left, your opportunities in the top right, or you can really move it whatever you want to, but you account for everything. And that's what CERT does in a different way, is it helps you account for what needs to be done and what to prioritize so that you can really make the biggest impact possible. But it all comes back down to, okay, this is what it is. How do we implement it? And the way to do that is to actually go join CERT. Now, do I have to pay a fee to join?
Depends on the area. Typically, it's free. Some areas your training will be free. They'll even outfit you with some basic equipment. Other areas, you'll have to purchase your equipment, and you may need to pay for some materials. It's totally dependent on who the municipality and who's chartering the CERT.
But so the point is, though, you may have to pay for something, but it's something you need anyways.
Absolutely. And you don't have to be a survivalist or prepper to be part of CERT, but
right.
CERT certainly offers a lot of opportunities in training, opportunities in situational awareness. If you want to be the first guy to get the phone call in your city when something goes down, this is a great way to be right in the pipeline.
Yep. Well, I think the key for me is it's the greatest networking opportunity for someone who's preparedness minded, because now you're focused on finding all the same people who are preparedness minded but also community driven, which is the type of prepper I am.
Perfect combination.
I mean, there are preppers out there that are the, hey, we're like, there's a group now that are the, hey, we're the roving bandit preppers. We're gonna keep track of all the other preppers and then go take all their stuff. Yeah. And they're morons. They're suicide by prepping.
But they're their own community, right? There's going to be some strength there, so you got to watch. You still got to be careful how to watch out.
Yeah, but
all guns, no groceries.
Yeah, they're all guns, no groceries. And the challenge with that is, number one, they're completely exposed, meaning they have zero resources to take care of themselves. They have maybe zero training on how to take care of themselves. All the training they have is guns and tactical training. Mm-hmm. Where's the water filtration? Where's the shelter building? Where are the actual emergency rule of 3 laid out and played out? So there's a concern there, but that's not who we're serving. That's not who I care to serve. What I care to serve is the community. I care to serve those of you who are listening and have been loyal listeners like our last guy. Thank you so much for being part of this, because that's why we do this. That's why Cash does what he does. That's why Shane and I do what we do. All the different things we do in this world of prepping is to help create as much awareness as possible and get the right information out so that you can make simple moves to get yourself better prepared and better aligned with the community and better able to respond correctly. I mean, the last thing we want to do is run into the fire and get burned up. We want to.
Yeah, exactly. A big part of this CERT training is actual training in disaster preparedness and fire suppression, medical as well. So it's a lot of practical stuff that's very, kind of on the basic side, but definitely practical.
There's a huge difference between trained and untrained. Uh-huh. And when you have everybody wants to pitch in, and there's a huge volunteerism in this area, but we can touch on that.
Yeah, we'll get on that one.
Let's go into that in the next break. After the next break, you're listening to Prepper Talk Radio, AM 1640. It's kind of fun. We're on new numbers here at KTalk. Stay tuned. We're brought to you by Survival Medical. That's survival-medical.com. We're going to be using the Backcountry Kit this weekend, so check out their website and see what works for you. They've got a kit for everything. Welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio. We've got our special guest in-house, Cache Valley Prepper, all the way down from Cache Valley.
Oh, you gave up the location.
Did I? Or didn't I? I'm hoping everyone figured it out by now. No one's called in to question it. But we are talking about community emergency preparedness, and that today is really leaning towards CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. It's a certification you can get. We were actually talking about that on the break. Is you can start online. All the course content's online, but start online by finding your local chapter or is that what you'd call it, chapter? No.
A team.
Team, just your local team. Get connected with them. Find out who the leadership is. Find out what the communication line is and get yourself plugged in and get that CERT training, because now you're a better prepared member of that community.
You're more aware. You're more
you're useful.
Exactly. There you go.
Right?
Yeah, just like you said before, Scott, is don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution. Now, just because you become a member of a CERT team doesn't mean you have to respond in an emergency. I mean, you're not obligated, I got to go because, my family's taken care of, so I got to move on. That's not the case.
In fact, you only respond once your family's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's the key is a lot of people think, as a first responder, as this and that, I've got to first take care of the community. Well, it's the mama bear approach. Ain't nobody getting fed until mama bear's fed, right? You can't help your kids. You can't help your community until you know that you're okay. So first check your home. Check your family. Obviously check your family and your home. Put the family first, right? Check those things. Make sure you're good there first. Then go respond.
Respond to your neighbors.
Don't abandon your family to go take care of someone else unless you know your family's okay. Mm-hmm. That's the key to my personal preference and preparedness, but also to CERT.
And CERT is really there to support the professionals, right? I mean, that's really their role. It's not to do all the search and rescue themselves.
It's to
organize. Or putting out fires. It's a level of support.
And it's once the first responders are overwhelmed, they call in CERT to help.
Absolutely.
In certain conditions, emergency response is going to have to come from outside the area, but that doesn't mean that the people inside the area aren't going to be working to help themselves.
Absolutely. Let's take this other caller. Hey, thanks for joining us on Prepper Talk Radio today. You got a question or comment on CERT?
Yeah, am I on the air now? Or
you are. Absolutely, what? Yes.
I am?
Yes, you are.
Okay, well, what I'm going to say is I haven't heard any of the negative parts of this, and we don't learn our history lessons very well, do we?
Okay.
The one thing of it is I'm going along with Ronald Reagan and Ezra Taft Benson, and every you have the government, it don't matter what part of the government it is, when they come to help, they come with their mandates.
Mm-hmm.
All we got to do is look at what happened in Katrina on that deal, and when your city or your fire department or your local community, and I can't believe that our church bought into this, whenever they sign into that, why, they take their directions when they enter catastrophe from the federal government down, not from the community up. You got it backwards. You need to check into it a little further. Bye.
What's your response to that, Cash?
Well, one thing you need to realize is that the people who you're going to be dealing with, and I totally get it. I understand that I'm here from the government and I'm here to help you are some of the scariest words some people can hear. And I have got it when I have been deployed and responded. You know, they see you in uniform and that you're from the government and you're there to help. And some people are fearful of that, but the fact of the matter is we're neighbors. You know, it's people from your own community, your own neighbors coming to help you. And within the context of the CERT program, this isn't FEMA's coming in
There's no enforcement of any kind.
to relocate you.
Yeah.
And we've learned a lot since Katrina. In fact, there's been quite a bit of legislation passed so that many of the mistakes that occurred in Katrina don't get repeated.
Well, here's an example. I think that's a better example for our last caller. You know, if you go back in history, you know, Ezra Taft Benson is actually a cousin of mine. Let's go back to Idaho, where he's from. Let's talk about a disaster that happened. There was the Teton Dam that broke, right? The federal government and the state decided they were going to come help and they were going to respond. They followed the protocols to come help and respond. When they got there, the representative says, okay, here's what we need to do. And the community goes,
Already done.
That's done. Okay, well, then here's what we need to do. Oh, that's done. All right, well, here's what we need to do. That's also done. So then he stepped away from the microphone, the bullhorn, walked over to the stake president who's kind of taking charge. It was primarily LDS population. And he says, all right, what do you want us to do? And hands him the bullhorn. The key here is it's not, hey, trust the government or don't trust the government. Screw whoever thinks that you cannot trust the government in everything or in nothing. There's a measure of ineptitude in that thought process. You have to be wise. You have to be studying yourself, and you have to take everything with a grain of salt.
It's not black or white.
There's no such thing as black or white anymore. There's so much gray in the world. You've got to be willing to talk to whoever you can talk to find out what's going on and to find out what resources are available. If you put off CERT and say, well, it's a government-run organization, I'm sorry, but you're a moron to me. You need to be willing to learn the language that everybody else in your community is using so that you can be helpful and responsive. If you're not, then you're part of the problem. And the whole Teton Valley, when they had this incident, they knew what to do because they as a community had been doing it for years. They had a plan. They had prepared. Yeah, I have cousins and grandmas and uncles and aunts that were affected by it. I wasn't alive yet. But homes were washed away. People were accounted for. Things were checked. Priorities were taken and put out. And so everyone knew what to do. And they used the LDS format of home teachers going out and checking on their families. Right? That's not far off from how CERT does their block captains.
No, and I'd like to examine the Teton incident
Yeah, let's do it.
In the context of spontaneous volunteerism, if that happened today, what could we do better? The issue is that when there needs to be cooperation between the locals and CERT, because that's great that everything was already done when the emergency responders got there. The problem with that is they didn't. Then you don't have the paperwork filled out. No one's tracked any time. No one signed in and out. No one documented the disaster. There's no proof. And so the community loses millions of dollars in federal aid. And people, the victims can't get their homes rebuilt because they have no proof, because we didn't follow procedures and and
So I guess
create a paper trail.
First thing you do is got to know those procedures, right? And so someone can begin to implement those on that spontaneous level.
Right. And, had now I'd like to stress the importance of the stake president working with CERT. A stake president on average is in about 6 years. Now CERT will be there before he comes in, and it'll be there after he's gone. If they cooperate, then it's going to be his same members and the community who are doing all the same things. The same work will happen, but they'll document it properly. They'll fill out the forms, and the community will be way better off, and you'll get the benefits that you should receive from having paid your taxes.
And this is I think important for people, especially those of you that are outside of the state of Utah. I mean, because this is broadcast digitally all over the place. Wherever you are, whether you're a faith or whether you're not, you have resources available to you. Hopefully, your local faith has those resources outlined for you. Most of them have. Everywhere I visited, they have those lined up. Whether it's a pastor, a bishop, whatever, I've found that to be true. They've got your local resource numbers on a bulletin board. They've got their website up with all the local resources. They have their food solution figured out for when there is a disaster. So get involved with those as well. Whatever your faith is, whatever your belief system is, get involved. Find a way to get involved. I personally think that CERT is a fantastic way to get involved because you learn all the basics of what should be happening. Those are things you don't learn typically from church. I never learned them at church, and some of you may or may not have, but I never learned them at church. I learned them through Boy Scouts. I learned them through CERT. I learned them through the FEMA handbook, which is actually a great resource. Now, take it for what it's worth, depending on your belief principle or your theories and conjecture.
And it's not the most refined manual. It's not the most detailed.
It's great baseline introduction to things you should be doing. Now, there's a lot of things you can do that are way better, but this is an eye-opening opportunity to research and to educate yourself. If you're not taking that opportunity to educate yourself, then what are you doing? This radio show is designed to help you educate yourself.
Inspire you to go and do something.
Yeah, our hope is that you take it a step further. You listen to the show, and then you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to research that topic some more, or I'm going to go add this to my equipment and my tools list, or
your binder.
Hopefully, your
my
binder.
Skills training.
Hopefully, your skills training. That was what I was leading to. Is your skills training. Your knowledge base is the most important tool you have as a preparedness-minded individual. Whether you want to call yourself a prepper or not, whether you want to call yourself a survivalist or not, because they're slightly different, whether you want to call yourself a bushcrafter or not, or maybe you're just the outdoorsman, everyone, I can do everything myself.
Everyone focuses.
Self-reliant individual. Whatever your focus is, there's bleed over in all of these. There's a carryover that helps everybody.
Yeah, obviously some preppers, they decide they like bushcrafting better, and that's kind of where their strength lies. And we all find our little strengths and what our interests are and what they are. They are a lot of interest, like silver. I love talking about silver, but I also like to, like you really like to do build shelters. I mean, that's one of your hobbies you really like to do. So we each find our little strengths there, and we go after them. So
people are dynamic, and they're not just one thing.
Exactly.
Right.
You can be both, both CERT and in your church, whatever your religion may be, and part of your community, and a prepper, and a survivalist, and a bushcrafter, and.
But it starts somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's funny because it just made me flash back to the days of dating. I'm coming up on my 5th year anniversary, which is the coolest thing in the world to me. But when I was dating, everyone would ask, "Oh, what do you do? What do you do for a living?
Right.
What's your favorite hobby?" Well, man, how do you broach that? My favorite hobby is prepping, and it was like,
what's
prepping?
What's that?
Especially in the single world in California where they don't take it seriously at all, for the most part. But they're like, "Wait, what is that?" Oh, Doomsday guys. You're National Geographic Doomsday Prepper guy.
It's not sports. You don't love sports.
We love labels.
Yeah, everybody likes to label, categorize things, but the reality is
can
this.
it and put it on the shelf.
Yeah. We're all very dynamic, and that's the thing that makes interacting with the human culture so fun is every person you talk to is like a jack in the box. You don't know what is exciting about them. But you've got to interact. You've got to turn the crank. to see what they're made of. And you find amazing people. That's the thing that I've loved about doing this show and about doing PrepperCon is I've met so many really incredibly awesome people because of it. I met Shane because of this. I met Cash because of this. I've met guys from medical companies. I've met guys from local cities, and I've met guys from multinational conglomerates that are just great people doing good things, doing things that are helping each other out. And I think that's the focus. That's the greatest crossover in the world of prepping that I found is everyone wants to help. Everyone wants to be of assistance. And that is the greatest trait I've found across the board.
And they're really good at something in particular.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So we can pull from their strengths and they can pull from yours, and you complement each other perfectly. That's one thing that I've just absolutely loved about this whole journey of mine.
Well, and one of my favorites is my neighbor. He's a Dutch oven genius. You know, we're running out of time, but the focus today is simply this. Get involved at the community level. If you can get involved with CERT, great. If you want to get involved with your local churches, great. If you want to join a service group, fantastic.
Or it could be Civil Air Patrol or Red Cross or Medical Reserve Corps or Aries Radio, whatever you do.
Yeah,
Get
absolutely.
involved. Hey, thanks for tuning in this week. We'll be back next week on Friday.
Talent hits a target others